Book of Proverbs, chapter 22. Verse number 6. Proverbs 22, verse 6.
Amen.
And when you're found it, please stand for the reading. Amen. Everybody there?
Amen.
Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Amen.
Amen.
You may be seated. Continuing in our family series, I told you that we would get to the kids, and I didn't want to drag out the series. Wanted to hit upon family, which we did back in Genesis. Then I wanted to talk about the wives, which we did, and the husbands. Oh, how we talked about the husbands. Today is children, and I was hoping to find just one passage of scripture that might help us to understand what we need to do as far as children go. Now, here's an interesting thing. I told you all that there are not a lot of scriptures about marriage, and they're not. But there are a whole lot of scriptures about children and how they should be raised. Most of them are in the book of Proverbs. That is why we are here today. Now, I do want to let you know right off the bat, for those of you that have never studied Proverbs, Proverbs are what we call pithy sayings. And a pithy saying is just a saying of wisdom. That means that in general, it is true, very true in general. But every now and then there will be an exception to the proverb. Does that mean that if I see a proverb, especially the one that we're doing today, and it doesn't seem that it's worked out for me, does that mean that it's because I'm one of the exceptions? Probably not. You probably didn't apply it correctly. But could it be? Possibly. But don't use that as an excuse. All right, so we are going to talk about kids today. I'm going to just basically try to teach. We don't have a whole lot of time. And I'm going to see if we can get to the meat of this. We only have one verse, so it shouldn't take too long, right? Y'all should know better than that. Question, are your children cursed? Have some of you looked at your child and said, surely this child is cursed? Have you looked at the way they act and thought, there's no way in the world this could be my child? My child couldn't act this way. This is not a husband and a wife coming together and one flesh producing this. There's no way in the world my child could be this way. There's something that is taught in church that I am in disagreement with simply because I cannot find it scripturally to be true. There is this thing called generational cursing, and a lot of people do teach it. Here's the first practical issue I have with generational cursing. If you don't know what a curse is a prayer or a statement by an individual upon another individual that they would receive harm or be injured, or that there would be something negative that goes on in their life. Now, in the Bible, God does do some cursing in the Old Testament. He curses the ground in Genesis. He curses the serpent. When you get over into the law, he does some cursing. But there is a scripture I want us to look at, because for those of you that may think that there is generational cursing, I want to take you to the scripture that is normally used for that. If you'll find, let's do Exodus chapter 20, verse 5 through 6. Flip over there real quick. When you found it, say amen. For those of you that don't know, go backwards. It's one of the first 5. Exodus chapter 20, verses 5 through 6. And you will note that this is in the middle of the 10 Commandments. You there?
Amen.
All right. Now, the actual commandment starts in verse number 4. You shall not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. So immediately we see here that God is dealing with paganism. He's saying, don't make any images, especially for him, by the way. All right, verse 5. You shall not bow down to them nor serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. Now, here's where everybody gets into generational curses, and I want somebody to tell me where you see the word curse in here anywhere. Visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the 3rd and 4th generations of those who hate me, but showing mercy to thousands to those who love me and keep my commandments. I want you to notice that it says that the word visiting means punishment. Visiting or punishing the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the 3rd and 4th generations. Now, many people read that and they think that, well, the reason my life was so tough and so hard, there must have been a generational curse, and it's not my fault. It's something that my great-grandfather did, or my grandfather did, or my daddy did, and there's nothing I can do about it. So because of that, I've acted a certain way all my life. I've been unruly, out of order, and it's simply because there's some kind of curse. But I want you to notice that he says that this happens to those who hate him. I want you to look over in Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 16. Because according to that, if you have this kind of theology that says that if a parent can do something and then the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren are going to somehow be cursed, then that would mean that God is taking what sin you and I commit and he's actually punishing the generations to come for what we've done. So Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 16. When you found it, say amen. Y'all let me get there. All right, Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse number 16. Fathers shall not be put to death for their children, nor children put to death for their fathers. A person shall be put to death for his what? Oh, so you're responsible for your own sin. So what is Moses talking about in Exodus? Well, first of all, Deuteronomy is the second telling of the law. It is a repeating of the law to the people before they go over into the promised land. It's Moses' way of setting the record straight, so to speak. So, in setting the record straight, he wants them to know that the sins that a father, mother commits are not going to go to the child. So, what is he talking about when he's over in the 10 Commandments and over in other parts of Scripture where he starts talking about what happens generationally? Let me give you an example of that, and then maybe you can understand. When the Israelites went pagan, just what he said, don't bow down to any other images or anything like that. When they did that and they showed hate for him, God would send them into persecution. We know what happened to them going into Babylon. We just finished the book of Daniel. Now, if you understand what happened there, you also know that God had Nehemiah write to the people a letter, and basically he tells them in the letter that they are going to go into captivity for 70 years. He says that he knows the plans that he has for them. Y'all know that scripture right out of the NIV. Everybody likes that scripture, don't you? Plans to what? Prosper. Right? But what people don't realize is what he tells them in the letter is that that's going to happen with the 3rd generation after they go into captivity. So basically, all he's really saying in the scripture is that when you go wrong, Israel, what's going to end up happening? I'm going to punish you, and the consequences of what you've done are going to happen to the 3rd and 4th generation. Now, here's the deal. It's not until that 3rd generation that they actually repent. What God is saying is he's saying that your children will mimic you in such a way that it'll take 3 or 4 generations before they actually repent.